first, you just have to love that opening theme. For those of you not in the know, this is PhD, Pagan Has Discussed Games, and this is our third episode. And what you just heard was a masterful piece from the video game Halo Combat Evolved. That song was actually done by Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore. They did the music.
They were the composers.
Yeah, they were the composers for for Halo. And it was good. And the game is pretty much like their music. It's really good. So,
yeah, we are going to come out on the side for Halo. It has its problems. It has a number of problems, but it was in the aggregate a really damn fine game.
It was my first game on the Xbox, and I played that game for hours. It was good. I got it the day it came out. I remember I was waiting outside like a Best Buy with my dad, and I got the Xbox first.
I had gotten a PS2 that generation.
Yeah, before I got the PS2, I actually got the Xbox. And it was fantastic. It was great.
I picked up the Xbox later, and Halo 2 had not come out by that point, but Halo had long been established as a game by that point. And it was one hell of a game.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So for those of you who don't know, I'll give you a brief summary, and then we'll start getting into it. And it's really hard to actually think of anyone who doesn't know, but I'll do it anyway. So Halo Combat Evolved is the official title for the game made by Bungie Studios. Bungie had made other games previous to that, but they weren't as big. One of these games was Oni. If any of you
Marathon too. Marathon actually was a fairly big deal.
Yeah. And so for Halo, you are in the shoes of Master Chief. Isn't it 117?
Master Chief Petty Officer 117 Spartan 117.
Yeah, so you are in the hands of future Rambo. Like, this guy is like the Terminator, the Predator, Rambo, and like 007 all mixed into one character. And you are in a galactic war with a group of creatures known as the Covenant, a sentient
a collective
of other species that are trying to not necessarily wipe out humans.
No, they were trying to wipe out.
They were okay. Well, I thought it was just that we were in the way of something.
No, I'm going to show how much of a Halo nerd I am in this episode a lot, I guess. But the first time that they met humans, the Covenant broadcasted one message, which was that it is the will of the gods that you be eradicated.
Yep. Okay, I'm remembering this. It's been a while for me. I stopped. Actually, no. It's weird. He says he's a Halo nerd, but I've actually saturated myself with more Halo story-wise than he has. It's actually kind of strange that way. You've probably played more of the actual multiplayer than me, but I've watched almost all the movies and read almost all the books and played the games.
I read a lot of the books, but I haven't actually watched any of the films, I think.
Fall of Reach is good. It's on Netflix. It's wonderful. So essentially you go to war with, and the entire story is really about Master Chief, even up to the newer installations of this franchise. And so that's the gist of it. It's a shooter. And so we're going to get into different forms of this and what makes this game so significant and so good as a whole, and where they fall off as a whole too as well. So I'll let Pagan start off. You can pick whichever topic.
All right. So we'll start off with a brief discussion of our main characters here. The humans are organized for most of the game and the broader stories. We're dealing with the UNSC, the United States Space Command, which is the military force that is protecting humanity against the Covenant. The Covenant are those group of aliens. Each alien had its own caste, its own and it's kind of implied that they were even picked up from different planets. And we know that, for instance, that the grunt aliens couldn't. They breathed liquid methane or something like that.
Yeah. There's a point in the game where you can actually break off their fuel tanks and suffocate them to death. It's actually horrible, but they make weird gurgly noises as they die. It's actually kind of cute.
The Flood and the precursors were, what was their name? Forerunners.
Forerunners.
Yeah. The I'm sorry, that every precursor species.
Precursor is a different species in a different game that we'll get into that came before.
But that whole trope, everyone has the same type of name.
Yeah.
It's kind of But the Flood, the zombie-ish infectee.
Well, let's hold off on the Flood. They're their own whole point of like Halo.
Okay, fine.
So we're looking at it. Well, let's just start off at the beginning.
Right.
So when you first play Halo, all you know is Covenant bad, human good. And so here's how Halo starts you off. This is what I like about Halo.
Actually,
okay, go ahead.
The first thing you see in Halo is that that theme and that opening shot of the ring world.
Of the ring.
And I don't know about Hazak. I don't know about other people. But for me, that actually did kind of... Well, I mean, we were, 13 or something?
Yeah.
We didn't have a huge amount of media exposure. I found that to be gobsmacking. It was a very distinct look, and it was very pretty. I mean, it was new Xbox graphics, so they were shiny.
Yeah.
And it was it definitely, with the music, invoked a air of mystery, of foreboding.
Okay, well, see, Pagan's interpretation is cute. Okay, it sounds like a poet wrote it or some shit like that. For me, that got blood flowing in places at that age that you do not need blood flowing in at the same time you were playing with another joystick. Okay, listen. The opening to Halo.
I'm just gonna scoot off this love seat.
The opening to Halo was magnificent. Like, it was gorgeous. Like, this, it was like, hey, guess what, motherfucker? You about to go on this ring. Well, for you who don't play the games, if you have not played these games, Halo takes place on a literal planet that is shaped like a halo. Like, the planet's a big circle. So if you go to, like, a fair and stuff, and you see those rides that go in a literal circle, that is exactly what Halo, like a giant thing of that. And that's the first thing you see. And then you have all this, like, orchestratic and, like, chorus in the background and sound like monks chanting. And this is the first thing you get. This is an action game, and it's setting you up like you're finna freaking fight with the gods, you know? And just like Pagan said in the beginning, this is foreboding. It's scary, but it's so good. Like, this makes you press start. And this is actually an important thing that games need to focus on a lot more, is that they're opening. Right now, Pagan is like dancing to the music in his head, and that just shows you, like, this is how you should start off a game. Like, not what you do in the opening scene, because it's just as good, but this is how you start a game. You hook us up as soon as we cut it on.
I mean, yeah, like, an opening scene is really important, but when you can get even before you press start, to be getting you in the mood like that, that's legit. That is good creation right there.
That is good gaming foreplay right there. That is getting the juices going before you plunge deep in. Like, that is some good stuff. So, moving from my sexual innuendos, we come to our opening scene. In the opening scene for Halo, you are in a pod. You are very restricted. You can't move. Yeah, like you. And the first couple of things they do is they have you go, oh, well, they've taken you out of your cryostasis, and let's see if you can move around and test out the buttons.
That thing was kind of lame.
Yeah, and
in my opinion, it really breaks the flow there. having that training sequence.
Yeah, okay, so the training sequence, now in retrospect, broke the flow, but even then, I really liked it because they did the training sequence in a way at the time that made sense. You were coming out of cryostasis, so they were training you, quote unquote, to kind of go, okay, can you move your head? Like it was held together by ice for all these.
Actually, there is. He does make a good point. It is one of the things about Halo is that it has to be taken in context. It's vital to remember the fact that this game was an innovator in a lot of ways, and one of those was it was the one of the first really successful console shooters. The one before that was GoldenEye, which had one fucking control stick. I don't know how
it was hard.
How the fuck they made that thing work, but Halo was the first game to really capitalize on the dual joystick and to bring the first-person shooter to the console. Now, before then, it had been really hard because a joystick, no matter how good you are with it, is nothing compared to a mouse. A mouse will always be more precise, and a mouse will almost always be faster, too. So, one of the things about Halo is that they had to cheat to make it a little bit easier. They had a bit of auto-aim, and it wasn't so noticeable that you felt like you were being handicapped, but it was there to make it better as a game. And so he does bring up a good point. That almost overbearing tutorial section was kind of necessary because a lot of gamers would not have known about how to use a first-person shooter in a console. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so kind of to piggyback off of that, I'd argue that it was not the first game to utilize the joystick in that way. It's the first shooter to use the joystick in that way, but not the first game. And definitely when you're looking at Halo in its opening tutorial, I didn't feel it was overbearing to me personally, because even if I look back at it now, it utilized the story to kind of make you use these buttons and let you learn how to use them because of the fact that it was like this guy's just coming out of stasis. So we're trying to make him check his vitals. So we're checking how he moves. And of course, it was a tutorial. It's like, can you move? Can you use this button? Like, yes, that's what it was for, but it wasn't as obnoxious as some games out there that kind of make you do that.
Tutorial sections are a pain.
Especially when you know they're tutorial sections. So, moving on from that, this is your opening sequence. So, the first thing you do is that you kind of see some dudes, like, talking to you from a little window above the floor that you're training in. And the first thing that happens after all the training is done is
kaboom!
The explosion, the door. I apologize for people who were, like, standing close or using headphones for that one. But, there's an explosion and just gigantic raptor with hands. That's the best way you can describe these motherfuckers. Comes out and he just starts shooting everyone in that room. And you can't get to the room. The room is bulletproof. It's above a floor from you. You just watch in horror as these scientists who probably were like 8-year-old children wanting to go off and explore space, and their dream was met at the ripe old age of 35, and they were blown asunder randomly by this person. I don't know why I gave you their personal details of their life. They probably had a dog. It probably name was Juniper, and Juniper had no one to feed its bowl, and Juniper probably ate its leg off because no one took care of it. It's a grim story.
Well, considering the fact that these the crew members were probably from Reach, Juniper was glass.
Yes, Juniper died.
And then we meet our second, in some ways, much more important than the Master Chief. We meet the real protagonist of these stories, Cortana.
Okay, so as far as Cortana is concerned, and it's arguably to say real protagonist when it comes to Cortana. I love Cortana. She is awesome. She is important. So, best way to sum up Cortana, to some of you who may not have played it, but to also give you an idea of who she is. Cortana is an AI in the truest sense. She is an artificial intelligence that thinks and lives all by itself. She is processed and created from the brain material of the doctor who helped construct the Spartan program, Master Chief. And so she's like that doctor's spirit animal, basically. Cortana is capable of connecting to almost any form of technology, and her main way of interacting with the character is a voice inside the Master Chief's head. So he takes like a chip, plugs it into a suit, and you kind of hear her throughout most of the game. She does almost all the talking for everything. She is like an effective Navi from Legend of Zelda. Like, she is blue and she helps you out with everything, but she's quirky. She has
she does fulfill the trope of there's this trope where a person with an internet connection or something like that will talk to the main character. It happens a lot in games, but it also happens a lot in like action movies or TV shows, where the tech person in the back will be making things easier.
For you non-gamers, or for you comic lovers, Oracle.
But that trope is very common, but in this one it is given a specific twist due to the nature of John and Cortana, John and Dr. Halsey, the human who Cortana was based on, Cortana and Halsey, and in many ways, the reason why I would claim that Cortana is in at least some way actual protagonist is probably not correct, but she is a dual protagonist with the Chief. Is their relationship is the most important thing in the story of the game.
Yeah, their relationship is really kind of what moves both of the characters along, to the point they're in certain parts of the video games and as a whole, you feel weird if Cortana is not around, and there are missions where you are trying to get Cortana back. In the final game, it's all about Cortana is losing herself, and because she's as an AI, she ages much faster than
they'll deteriorate
after time. And so, this is a big thing, and you really feel for that because Cortana is a person that's always been there for the character. Now, Cortana, we talk about her being the actual like main protagonist, which is true, but kind of moving back into the theme of Halo and how it is about your introductions, is that when you first meet the Covenant, and this is something I love, this is something I think is super cool how they did it, is that when you first see the Covenant, you are powerless. You are this awakened badass warrior that's supposed to be like the second coming of like Jesus himself. You can't do shit. Like, they are slaughtering your scientists in front of you, and you can't get to them. You can't jump up there. You can't break glass. You have no weapons. They are bombarding your ship. This takes place in space when it happens. You're on a space station, and so you have to navigate your way to the word is escaping me.
The escape hatch?
No.
Well, you have. Oh,
at the beginning,
you first have to navigate up to the helm.
The helm, yeah.
Where the captain is.
So you have to navigate to the helm where the captain is, and so you cannot kill anything for the first half. So it's really you sneaking around and running to different hatches before you can get a weapon. So you don't get your first firearm for the first couple of minutes, and it's really interesting. Like, the game is still teaching you how to utilize the controls and just how dangerous the Covenant is throughout the game. And so they're doing this by having you void of any weaponry. So when you do get your first weapon, that's a big deal. That's a power up. You're like, I can now defend myself. And now you kind of feel that this big badass warrior is who everyone says they are. And so that's kind of one of the central things I like about Halo, is that it's always emphasizing the strength of the character in different aspects. And this comes from different ways. Of course, this kind of gets diluted down the line, but I really like that opening sequence.
The so we could talk almost all day about the story and the player side of Halo, but I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't talk at least somewhat about the industry impacts. So I'm gonna mention some things that Halo was the first either to do entirely or to popularize. Vehicles. Before then, vehicles were rarely a thing that the player could hop into and interact with significantly in a shooter. There were plenty of games which did feature vehicles in GTA, for instance.
Yeah.
But as far as a first-person shooter, you rarely got into a car and were able to drive around with it.
And the cars actually didn't, you were able to do it, they did not feel as genuine as these vehicles did.
And the vehicles were super important to Halo. The next thing was regenerating life. Now, boy, howdy, is that trope really overused in shooters nowadays. And in the first Halo, it wasn't completely a regenerating health. You had the plasma shield from the suit, but you also had a 6 bars of health, which meant that there was still at least somewhat a reason to go exploring to find health packs. Even though it was sometimes really, really weird to be finding these health packs.
Yeah, they were kind of scattered in strange ways.
But the regenerating shield mechanic was, for the most part, meant to equalize the situation. So if you had 6 bars of health or if you had 1 bar of health, it wasn't that big of a difference from if you had 100% health in, say, Doom versus 10% health. That was a much bigger difference than the difference could ever be in Halo. And by equalizing this, they could have a better expectation of how the player would be able to do in any given room. It has been far too overused, and without even the saran wrap of a plasma shield in mini games, especially fucking Nathan Drake. The guy gets shot and then hides behind a wall and then he's fine. God, I'm gonna shit on Uncharted a lot in this show, but that one doesn't make any fucking sense. The other big thing that Halo brought into the industry was the 2-weapon limit. Now, one thing that it did was it had grenades on a completely separate trigger. In a lot of first-person shooters, you had to select your fucking grenade and then throw them while not having your other weapon out. That was clunky. That was awkward. It made grenades kind of shitty. And Halo allowing you to just at any moment fling your grenade meant they were a much better tool to be used in the first-person shooter.
Can you make it stick? Is probably one of the best lines about a grenade in any video game ever done by Cortana. And if you don't know it, just like type it in on Google or YouTube and just hear her say it, and like,
bet you can't stick it.
Bet you can't stick it. Like that. Oh boy. Hey. Oh, anyway, I'm gonna let Pagan finish his thought.
No, yeah, the plasma grenade was something. I'm certain that's been done other places, but God,
not as well as that.
The
sticky grenades have been around. If you play GoldenEye, they have sticky grenades.
Yeah.
But the plasma grenade just made it beautiful.
Oh, man. I'm not sure if that changes anything tactically in a dramatic way, but God, is it fucking fun. Especially to throw it on a grunt and then have them run into a bunch of grunts. Man, that was fun. Or just the terrible knowledge that you were going to explode in a multiplayer match.
Oh, okay. So we have to focus on this. This is something that other games did, but Halo, I don't necessarily, from my perspective, Halo really improved on it.
That being?
Enemy AI reactions to your manipulation of the environment was huge. You heard Pagan say earlier that when you throw a grenade on a grunt, they will run into other grunts and explode. So there's a little bit of early information you need for this, and then it connects with the other characters and stuff in the game. So the Covenant are extremely intelligent. They are
some of them.
Actually, no, they're all extremely intelligent on different levels and for different reasons. And this is an important thing to remember, is that they had a caste system, so of course they were a lower Covenant, but they were far more organized in my perspective than most humans in the game as far as military composition works. And so when you're looking at it, the grunts were the weakest ones. They were the lowest ones on the pole. They were literally what they sound like. They were sent out in massive drones. They were even physically the shortest.
And they kind of look like dogs.
Yeah, and they would just slum around and growl all day, and you could take them off by smacking them in the head with a gun. Like, they were that easily taken down. And if you could, a cool tactic in the game was to throw a sticky grenade, which is like a blue phosphorus looking grenade that you would throw on someone, and it would just smoke, and it would stick on them, and they would just go, they would freak, and they would just run into another group, just blow them up. You could easily take out like 3-4 enemies with just that one grenade. Now, what makes this interesting to you? Well, how many games did you play before that, or even after that in some aspects, because people didn't catch on until much later, where enemies react to what you do? Like, this, they don't even do this in Assassin's Creed still, which is ridiculous. Like, the enemies will just sit there and watch what you do. In Halo, if you were shooting at an elite in one spot, he would move. And the elite, just, they're big, gigantic, almost like second in command kind of creatures. If you shot at them, they would just move out the way. They would roll, they would tumble, they would look for your open flank and come up from behind. You had your jackals, who were the smart, well, not smart, but necessarily they were like the sneaky little ones who use sniper and long-range weaponry and use shields. So they would hide around you.
They were the biggest pain in the asses to kill. I hated the jackal. They
were. They required that you either use like their own weaponry against them or just overpower them to kill them. And so how it worked is that the AI in these games, they were really, really, really connected with the player. You went one way, they went the other. Now, which is weird because apparently your comrades could not do this. But the aliens themselves were extremely inventive and acted according to your movements and your mechanics within the game. I think this is one thing that really puts you into a gaming world. It's alive, it's living. You are manipulating it. And I'm pretty sure other games were doing it before, but Halo was the first game that I really noticed as a child that was happening.
AI reaction is it's still elusive. I mean, in a lot of ways, artificial intelligence is a lie. It's more like one way that I heard somebody say it is we don't make things intelligent. We make things that are fun to poke at.
Yeah. It's more reactionary than anything.
Which is, in a lot of ways, anti-intelligence. Anyway, the last industry impact was the two-weapon system. Now, whether that made sense in Halo, whether that makes sense in other games, whether it's better or worse than the Gordon Freeman Doom style of having every gun that you ever want. Also, but they have their ups and downs, and I don't think that two weapons is exactly the best way of doing it, and I also don't think that two weapons always leads to the most interesting decisions for the player. But I think that it is good to have an alternative from just having all of your weapons available at one time, because it can, to a certain extent, force you to pick and choose and to force you to adapt on the fly.
I think it also takes out that God complex you get when playing certain games too, because you have to remember Master Chief is already physically superior than all the other humans. And then when you're giving this option in a firefight that you have to give up, that sniper rifle that you love for a rocket launcher because there's this gigantic hunter on the way. Hunters were so cool.
Now, I will say this. In the single player, whether or not it makes interesting decisions, that's kind of In multiplayer, definitely makes more interesting decisions.
Yes.
In multiplayer, limiting the player to 2 guns is, I think, definitely very good. And
yes.
Now, we have gone all this way without talking about multiplayer whatsoever, and that is kind of a grave oversight.
That's a grave oversight. There's a lot about this game that we're going to squeeze in. This episode is probably going to go on much longer than the other ones.
Yeah. We're at 31 minutes. Whoops. So, multiplayer. Suffice it to say, I don't think the FPS genre would have in any way, shape, or form gotten to the place that it is now.
I completely agree.
Like, the FPS is no longer the god that it used to be. But for a while, that genre was the end-all and be-all of console games. And by the numbers, it's still making a big killing.
For those of you who grew up or know more about Call of Duty, this is what made it for that to be like accessible how it is.
Oh yeah, Call of Duty 4 would not have happened without Halo. Yep. There's no way.
No.
And it took a long time. Like Halo came out and Call of Duty 4 didn't come out for years and years after that. But another big thing is that Halo really made Xbox Live. Halo 2, before Halo 1 actually came out before Xbox Live existed.
Yeah.
Xbox Live it did exist on the Xbox, the first Xbox. I hate that naming scheme. We're calling the third system Xbox One. Who the fuck came up with that one?
Brilliant minds at Xbone.
The first Xbox did not start with Xbox Live, but it did eventually get Xbox Live, and that wouldn't have happened without Halo. And Halo 2 definitely would not have been what it was without Xbox Live.
Okay, so Pagan is actually underplaying how significant the multiplayer is for Halo, and which is funny because he is the Halo multiplayer guy. Halo's multiplayer, this is important to note, was so strong it basically bred the idea for most shooters to just be multiplayer games with a story attached to it. GoldenEye definitely had a great multiplayer, and that's what you played it for afterwards. But
however, it's important to note that was the N64. It was only couch.
It was, you could only play on the screen with your friends. Halo 2, let me emphasize this, people, is still to this day in some corners respected as the multiplayer shooter game of all time because of how it just produced this stuff. In every game that came out after that of Halo was less about its story, more about its multiplayer. That's not an argument. I don't feel I need to debate that. That's just truth. Its multiplayer was its big thing. Its multiplayer was so strong, it bred a show. It bred a show out of it.
Yeah.
If you are familiar with Red versus Blue, check it out. It's made by Rooster Teeth. It's amazing. They make great work. Also check out Ruby. If you, and we're just shamelessly posting people that we love. We will be posting other people later.
Yeah, I wish they were paying us for that, but we aren't getting paid for it. It's just a plug.
Yeah, it's just a plug. We like them. We can't leave them out to dry. And so the multiplayer, the entire show takes place on the multiplayer map with both of the two sides. And this is the thing that's really important about that. We are looking at one aspect of a game, multiplayer combat shooter, that transformed into a show. It did, and then it transformed the industry. So it's impacting the industry in multiple ways. This is putting the Halo as a forerunner.
Halo is in a lot of ways a seminal game.
Yeah.
It changed the landscape.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be Pagan and Hazak discuss, though, if we didn't at least try to discuss cultural and outside impacts of the game. Mm-hmm. And this is where Halo seems a little bit odd, because it feels as if there's almost nothing to discuss. I mean, you can vaguely draw a parallel between the Covenant and
caste systems, and
I was going to say jihadists, but that's very vague. That's reaching.
Yes, yeah, that's reaching for that one. Yeah.
You can kind of, Halo just doesn't really touch on a lot of things, and that blandness is.
Don't poke those buttons.
Sorry?
I was just saying it doesn't poke those buttons.
Yeah. I feel that is to its detriment to a certain extent. I mean, it's a lot better than, saying something horrendously stupid, but I would have liked it if it had said something more, and I would definitely like it if admittedly, the last game I played in that series was 3, so the further games, they might actually be saying stuff now. I don't know. Mea culpa. And there is one thing that the game brings up, and even then I don't feel it really discusses it much. And if you only play the games without reading the books or watching the movie, you might not even have picked up on the fact. But the Spartan 2s were children soldiers. They were kidnapped from their homes and trained from the ages of
like
8.
Like in the game you play John, right? John is probably like 7 feet tall. He probably weighs about 200 plus pounds. I do believe.
No, not 200. He probably weighs something like 300 plus pounds.
Well, I mean physically himself as a person outside the suit.
Well, him with the suit is a ton.
Is a ton, yeah. Him with the suit, yeah. Okay, so yeah, he probably is like about.
Not to mention he's 7. He's 2 meters tall plus.
Yeah.
He's a big guy,
yeah.
And part of that was just physical training. Part of that is a lot of genetic and cyber enhancements.
Now, what I was bringing up with this is that this is important because it comes up, I think in Reach or one of the other games, one of the Spartans takes off their mask. And you look at them, they look like children because they are. They, I believe when they started doing combat and stuff, they're around the age of 12. Like, these are child soldiers. I don't think John...
They weren't fighting the Covenant at that point, but
yeah.
I think around the age of, I don't think it was 12 in the book. I want to say it was something like 14.
Yeah.
They have their first mission against insurgents, and it goes off almost without a hitch. And they do... I don't think they directly kill anyone, but they do set off a bomb, so there is collateral damage.
Yeah,
they're children. They are children soldiers.
Yeah,
a lot of those kids don't go through the genetic enhancements well and end up with crippling disabilities.
Some of the suits cripple them.
No, that was human soldiers.
Okay, that's right. When they tried to test it on the humans first. And I think an important aspect of this is that we're looking at it.
But no, you make your point.
Okay. So what I was looking at is just that, like, we're looking at it from children soldiers, and it's an important thing to address that. Because Halo, and this is where I kind of disagree with Pagan, is that Halo doesn't address it, but it's still a topic to discuss when it comes to Halo, because it's almost they address it in the stories, in the dialogue, not necessarily in the video games, but the extra content, they're addressing the fact that this stuff is almost inhumane. They don't just take these children, like, don't think they select them and then their parents are okay. They kidnap the children and then clone them.
Flash clone them, but the Flash clones almost always die within like a year or something.
Exactly. And so they are replacing these children in a very unethical way in order to save their species.
Except at the point where they did that, the Covenant they weren't aware of the Covenant whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was to save their current existing military and government, the UNSC.
Yeah. And so you're getting all these really this huge multitude of different aspects and reasonings behind this child soldier formation, and it's not addressed in the game until much later down in the series, where there's to the point now where in these new games, and my history on these new games is kind of vague, but essentially they're hunting down Master Chief because he's kind of gone rogue because of things that have happened. And so, he's got more understanding about the things behind it, and it starts questioning kind of like the significance of life, because Cortana, she starts deteriorating and dying off, but it really matters to John, but she's an AI program. So,
except that to John, she was mother.
Yeah, she was basically like his. And actually, I want to go that far. I think you're stretching it a bit as mother.
No, I don't think that I am.
Because
I think
the doctor existed. John was aware of the doctor.
He was, but to him, the books back up the fact that Halsey, Cortana, sometimes get mixed up in his head, and they definitely get mixed up with his mother. Like, to him, they are kind of one and the same, and they are mother. So it is, he was a child soldier who has known nothing but war. To say that he is broken does not correctly say it, because he had no vessel to break.
Right.
One of the things that I feel is that one of the reasons why I say that Halo doesn't really discuss the topic of children soldiers is because it's the way that children soldiers are used in the Halo setting and the way that children soldiers are used in real life are so disconnected. At least
I'd argue against that, only because the difference between children soldiers in Halo and the real human soldiers is, one, they're real, so this is being impacted on our actual environment and how we look at stuff. But two, the human soldiers in Halo just have special powers. It's more of a glorified look at it, and it doesn't make it okay. But what I'm trying to say here is that they both are suffering from this disconnect of humanity, and they literally go through both indoctrinations of some form to rip them out from their original aspects. So, children soldiers in real life behave a lot like Spartans. They still are more connected with their emotions and even have family groups within each other, but they are changed. They are no longer these children. Their childhood is done. It's finished.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at the concept behind children soldiers in Halo, I'd argue that they are discussing it. They just aren't preaching about it, about how some other games will. And I thought it was, and of course, this is not actually done, everyone, in the first game. This is happening in stuff outside of the games. It doesn't even come up in the games until maybe like Halo Reach and stuff like that. The concept of the Spartan program, and in the books, I definitely would argue that in the books they are talking about that. There are chapters just talking about it. Now, they are not saying what is right or wrong because it's taken from the aspect of the characters, but it's being addressed.
I would say that at least in the Fall of Reach, the book, it is acknowledged by almost everyone that what the Spartan 2 program is a breach of ethics on an almost
universal scale.
Well, not universal, but like a breach of ethics so massive that it's hard to properly describe it.
Yeah.
It's a massive, terrifying breach of ethics.
Yeah.
Most of the people who commit that breach of ethics say that they can live with it, not that they were in the right.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing I feel is that the setting ends up bearing them out. Without the Spartan 2s, it is certain that humanity would have probably gone extinct.
Yeah, so are you saying that so where are you kind of
I'm not saying that the creators of Halo were making a message that sometimes you have to use children soldiers to protect your species.
I don't
I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
But I am saying that is an unintended implication that their story makes.
Okay, I definitely can kind of see that.
And this is part of why I'm saying that I don't think that that Bungie and the creators of Halo really gave significant thought to their story and what their game was saying, which is evidenced by the fact that they are trying not to say anything at all, but what they end up unintentionally saying is somewhat horrifying.
I think you're stretching that, because if you look at Halo 1, and this is me kind of playing devil's advocate here, because if we're going to look at Halo 1 as a game, it's that game. We're looking at Halo 1. Nowhere in that game are we addressing age. Nowhere are we addressing the origin of this character. If Halo 1 only existed, we would have all thought we were playing some 46-year-old super soldier that was like going out through his life and just killing these guys.
Oh, come on. No one ever thinks they're a 46-year-old super
No, we're
soldier.
all 22 years old, all have like a doctorate degree and can use all weapons in every game that we ever played. Thank you very much, anime industry, for ruining my aspect of what you can do at 12. And so how it really goes for me is this, that I agree with you to a degree, but I do not think that what their message was portraying is supposed to be horrifying, because of the fact is that none of this existed into the books.
Oh yeah.
And so
what I'm saying is that I don't think that the folks at Bungie were thinking very hard about saying anything with the story or the setting of Halo. I think that the lack of care there accidentally led to a bad message being possible to glean from the story. However, what I think is that they were just trying to come up with a cool sci-fi story.
I also think that what they were trying to do is that, and this is me giving them a lot of credit and forethought, is that maybe they did think about this. Maybe they had this story done already, but the writers and people who they gave these extracurricular points of the story to are engaging in something that is to be addressed. I don't think it's promoting something that's horrifying. I think it's addressing the fact that how actual sometimes military thought is processed. Like you are looking at it, not you are looking at it, but they are definitely putting this child soldier thing in there, but then they address the horrible consequences behind it. They address how people are impacted. They address how the soldiers themselves are impacted, how their universe is impacted afterwards, and then almost they talk about how it's almost a gift that the Covenant exists, because now we have the Spartans and we can actually say, oh, we did this and it's very helpful now because we have these super soldiers. I don't think it's glorifying it in any way, but I also don't think it's pushing it under the rug, or not even saying that there's no forethought. I think when these books were being made and published, that someone at Bungie looked over this and went, okay, yeah, this is good. This is dark stuff. It's kind of like it's a perfect example. I'm going off on a small comic tangent here, but the relationship between Harley Quinn and Joker is not meant to be romanticized as everyone is doing. It's very popular nowadays to talk about how Harley Quinn and the Joker are in this couple relationship, and that when she broke free, it was great. She broke away from an abusive relationship. And in the real world, that is a good thing. But however, these are villains, and they both have killed people on their own accord. They are both bad people. And Harley Quinn is not better than Joker. Joker is not better than Harley Quinn. They're both horrible people. That's why they're made for each other, and that's why they exist as a couple. In my perspective, as a more positive aspects of the Batman universe, because they're addressing this kind of horrific thing. They're not saying that it's good. What they're saying is that this is bad, and then see how that plays out. And so we come back to Halo, is that this is a military operation being held for military needs, and it's useful to the military. We look at it as a cruel thing, and it is in many ways. But on that same note, without the Spartans, the species would be dead. Mm. So it's almost asking you to go, if you were in this situation, is it good now? In our world, we know child soldiers are bad, because the children soldiers are only used to be fighting other children soldiers in countries that need all the help they can get from each other and other people to help alleviate these situations. But in Halo, in the Halo universe,
by the way, we're just going to come out right here and say it. We are fully against children soldiers.
Yeah, like if you want children soldiers, like fuck you. Like that's a no-no. Like children, the only thing children should be shooting are rubber bands at each other. Even then, children don't shoot rubber bands at each other. Like,
and definitely don't aim at the eyes or the or the face.
For the eyes.
Only aim at the eyes if the person is wearing glasses. Then it's funny.
What the fuck? I wear glasses.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said that.
So just so all you guys know, okay, so yeah, no, we in no way, this is
condone or support children's soldiers. It is a terrible thing.
It's horrible.
And partially by definition, if you're using children soldiers, you're
participating in slavery too.
There's that. But if you're using children's soldiers, you're kind of an immoral fuckwit.
Okay.
But most of the people who use children's soldiers, even outside of that, are immoral fuckwits.
Yeah. Like, no children's soldiers. Like, we are now, what we're debating about now is the aspects of how that correlates with Halo. Again, this is a fictitious universe, and also, even in that universe, they're addressing the children's soldiers is kind of a no-no. That's why they do it in secret. That's why they flash clone people. So, if the video game world can address that having children shoot other children and other people is bad, we are falling behind.
Well, we're at 53 minutes. This video did run a fairly good length. And hey, I said that I think Bungie accidentally, unintentionally came out in support of children's soldiers. You said that they didn't. We're probably going to get some response from this, and we're talking about Halo in general. I think we've said no controversial statements whatsoever.
Nothing at all. This has all been Willy Wonka shit right here. And you know that movie doesn't do anything to your brain. So, yeah, this is more of our controversial episode. It only gets worse from here, people. This is us holding back. We literally have discussed which episodes we will be doing in the future, and we decided to do this one because it's lighter.
The two segments, Back in My Day and...
Oh, yeah. So, okay, Back in My Day. You want to go first? I'm trying to think of one.
Oh, great. You're going to make me think of one. Back in My Day... okay, I'm going to steal this one because one of us was going to say it. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry for using the cliche, everyone, but this was going to be brought up sooner or later. Back in my day, when a game refuse to load, and it would refuse to load for a ton of reasons
Oh.
because all these games
No, you didn't.
were physical. If it was a cartridge, then you would stuff the cartridge underneath your shirt and you would blow on it, and then you would stick it in and pray, this time it'll load, right? This time it has to load.
You know what? Hold up. I can do something better for you. So, for all of you who don't know what this sounds like, what I'm holding right now is Super Mario World for the Super NES. I'm going to blow into it so you hear how this sounds, what Pagan is talking about. So, it would be like, yeah, like it's loud.
Sorry again to, apparently this is a running gag of blowing out people's eardrums. That is a terrible running gag. I'm sorry.
So actually, I didn't actually blow through the shirt. I just blew directly on it.
I figured blowing through the shirt would, one, it would stop the dust from getting into my nose or eyes, and two, I thought the shirt would catch that.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, there's actually a smart thing to do there. Actually, the appropriate way you can blow on it. It does actually work. But for those of you who are getting old systems, I know you kids like to try to be retro nowadays. If you're getting older systems, a nice way to kind of clean your games is to take a Q-tip and alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol.
And rubbing alcohol. Don't use booze. And slightly,
definitely don't use booze. Instead, send booze to P.O. Box. We'll set up one.
We don't have a P.O. Box right now.
Yet.
So, just take some Q-tips and just slightly rub the inside around it and then let it dry a little bit. And then it usually works just fine. So, holy crap. Someone in my apartment just fell. We don't know who.
You have a broom? I can thump the ceiling.
I do have a broom, but we're not thumping ceilings. So back in my day, for me, actually revolves around the Game Boy. And for those of you who don't know, there was a time and place that after like 5 or 6 o'clock, playing a Game Boy sucked unless you had light.
Oh, Jesus.
And you had to play it by any light source you could. And I know some of you may have seen this on the internet and stuff, but it's true. You actually had to play Game Boys in a car, either with a flashlight of some sort, or you had to hope that you passed a lot of freaking street lamps. So,
it wasn't backlit. There was no light. You had to live in that magical realm of enough light to see it without enough light to glare off the screen.
There was nothing. There was no light. There was no color. It was like North Korea.
I'm just going to come out and say that the podcast's official stance is anti-North Korea.
Wouldn't necessarily say anti-North Korea, so much so as anti what they do to their people policy to Korea. Like that is like, we'll get into that at another point. Anyway, that's my back in my day.
If anybody wants to make a game discussing North Korea,
that'd be great. Like really quickly, flash game. We don't care. We'll play it for 2 minutes and then we'll just talk about North Korea for like 2 days.
Don't be horrible when discussing it, I guess.
Yeah. And so I guess also picks.
Yeah, the picks. I am going to say for my pick, a old game that really influenced a lot of my life is Empire Earth. It's a strategy game that goes all the way from being hunter-gatherers to being in space with giant robots and laser cannons. It was around, not the best or the most innovative game. It was just kind of the first RTS that I ever found. And I sunk hundreds of hours into that thing. Amazing. Check it out.
For me, a big game that I want you all to try out at some point in time, it is Chrono Cross, not Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is the more popular one. It has the artwork done by Akira Toriyama, who also created Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, blah, 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 blah. But Chrono Cross is the spiritual sequel to it. It is an amazing game with one of the best opening songs in video games I have ever heard. It was back in the day where learning how to play JRPGs correctly was really hard because its system was uniquely different. It was based off of an elemental color scheme, and you could play over 40 characters. So it was pretty intense, and it has one of the best plot twists in gaming, in my perspective. Anyway, this episode has reached a whopping hour. This is our longest episode to date.
Out of 3.
Out of 3. So, we hope to keep these coming. We are going to try and aim for 45 minutes, but we make no promises. These episodes will start getting much more involved. And if you like it being long, let us know. If you don't like it being long, let us know. We will try and meet that kind of happy medium for you. And if you don't give a fuck, let us know, because then we'll just do whatever we want to. So again, like, add, subscribe, all that jazz.
Click all the buttons.
Thank you for your listening ears and wasting your life with us. You won't get this back.
I'm certain it was an hour in traffic well spent.
Atlanta traffic sucks. Goodbye.
Thank you for playing.